What happens when one of Hollywood's most unpredictable actors meets daytime television's sweetest host and everything goes completely sideways? Today, we're diving into the moment that had everyone talking, when Nicolas Cage and Kelly Clarkson interview turned into a heated confrontation that nobody saw coming. Make sure to subscribe and drop a comment below, because this story gets wilder by the minute. The Kelly Clarkson Show had always been known for its warm, feel-good atmosphere. Kelly had built her reputation on making guests feel comfortable, creating those genuine moments that made viewers feel like they were sitting in on a conversation between friends. But when Nicolas Cage walked onto that familiar set, something was already off. "Nicolas Cage, everyone," Kelly announced with her signature bright smile. But there was a slight tension in her voice that regular viewers might have caught. "Thank you so much for being here." Cage settled into the plush chair across from her, his intense eyes scanning the studio audience before landing back on Kelly. "Thanks for having me, Kelly. Though I have to say, I'm not sure your producers were entirely honest about what this interview would cover." Kelly's smile faltered just a fraction. "Oh, what do you mean by that?" "Well, I was told we'd be discussing my latest film, my craft, maybe some fun stories from set. But I'm hearing whispers that you want to dig into some personal territory that, frankly, I'm not comfortable with." The audience shifted uncomfortably. This wasn't the typical warm-up banter they were used to. Kelly maintained her composure, but there was a new alertness in her posture. "Nicolas, I think there might be some miscommunication here. We always respect our guests' boundaries, and if there's something specific you'd prefer not to discuss, we can absolutely work around that." Cage leaned forward, his voice carrying that distinctive intensity that had made him famous. "See, that's exactly what I'm talking about. This diplomatic dance, this careful language. I've been doing interviews for decades, Kelly, and I can smell an ambush from a mile away." "An ambush?" Kelly's voice rose slightly, genuine confusion creeping in. "Nicolas, I'm not sure what you're referring to. Our team reached out to your people with standard topics. Nothing unusual or invasive." "Standard topics," Cage repeated, almost mockingly. "Let me guess. You want to talk about my marriages, my financial troubles, my quote-unquote eccentric behavior. Am I warm?" The studio had gone unusually quiet. Even the normally chatty audience seemed to sense they were witnessing something unprecedented. Kelly's team behind the cameras exchanged worried glances. "I genuinely don't know what you're talking about," Kelly said, her voice firmer now. "We had a list of questions about your new movie, your career highlights, maybe some fun behind-the-scenes stories. Nothing personal unless you wanted to share." Cage's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Right, and I suppose you weren't planning to bring up the pyramid tomb I bought, or my collection of shrunken heads, or any of the other tabloid nonsense that follows me around." "Nicolas, I swear to you, none of that was on our list. Look, if you're not comfortable, we can take a break, regroup, figure out what went wrong here." But Cage was already shaking his head, his agitation growing more visible. "You know what the problem is, Kelly? Everyone thinks they know Nicolas Cage. They think I'm some kind of walking meme, some eccentric weirdo who's lost touch with reality. And shows like this, they feed into that narrative. That's not what this show is about," Kelly protested, her own frustration starting to show. "We celebrate our guests. We don't tear them down. I've been nothing but respectful to you from the moment you walked in here." "Respectful?" Cage's voice was rising now. "You think it's respectful to book me under false pretenses, to make me think this was going to be a straightforward interview about my work when clearly your producers have other plans?" The tension in the studio was palpable. Kelly's usual warmth was being tested in real time, and viewers could see her, struggling to maintain her composure while trying to understand what had gone so wrong. "Nicolas, I need you to help me understand what's happening here, because I'm completely lost. What false pretenses? What other plans? I'm sitting here with the same questions I always ask, trying to have a normal conversation, and you're acting like I've personally attacked you." Cage stood up abruptly, pacing behind his chair. "Normal conversation? There's nothing normal about this industry, Kelly. Nothing normal about being reduced to sound bites and clickbait headlines. You want to know what's not normal? Having every interviewer treat you like you're performing some elaborate joke instead of taking your work seriously." "I do take your work seriously," Kelly shot back, her voice gaining strength. "That's exactly why I wanted you here. You're one of the most talented actors of your generation, and I wanted to talk about that. But instead, you walked in here looking for a fight." The accusation hung in the air between them, and for a moment, it seemed like Cage might actually consider her words. But then his expression hardened again. "Looking for a fight?" Cage's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper. "Kelly, I've been fighting my entire career, fighting to be taken seriously, fighting against typecast and fighting against people who think they understand me because they saw a gif of me screaming in a movie." Kelly stood up now too, matching his energy. "Okay, so fight for that here. Use this platform to show people who you really are, instead of attacking me for crimes I haven't committed." "Crimes you haven't committed?" Cage turned to face her fully. "Do you know what your production team asked my publicist yesterday? They wanted to know if I'd be willing to discuss my quote-unquote most memorable meltdowns. Meltdowns, Kelly, like I'm some unstable child having tantrums. The color drained from Kelly's face. They said that. "Oh, now we're getting somewhere," Cage said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Suddenly you're not so sure about your innocent little show, are you?" Kelly's jaw tightened. If someone on my team said that, they were completely out of line, and they'll be hearing from me. But that doesn't give you the right to come in here and attack me personally when I had nothing to do with it. Attack you personally? Cage laughed bitterly. "Lady, if I wanted to attack you personally, you'd know it. This is me trying to have a conversation about the bigger picture here, about how this industry treats artists like commodities." "Don't call me lady," Kelly snapped, her famous niceness finally cracking. "I have a name, and I've been nothing but professional with you. If you want to have a conversation about the industry, then let's have it. But stop taking your frustrations out on me." The audience was completely silent now, some looking uncomfortable, others leaning forward with fascination. This was unlike anything they'd ever seen on daytime television. Cage ran his hands through his hair, his agitation reaching new heights. "You want to know what's frustrating? Sitting across from someone who's built their entire career on being likable, who's never had to deal with the kind of scrutiny I face every single day, never had to deal with scrutiny." Kelly's voice was incredulous. "Are you kidding me right now? I've been in the public eye for over 20 years. I've had my weight dissected, my personal life analyzed, my talent questioned constantly. Don't you dare minimize what I've been through. That's different, and you know it." Cage fired back. "You're America's sweetheart. When people criticize you, they do it gently. When they come for me, they bring pitchforks. Different how?" Kelly was fully engaged now, her earlier confusion replaced by genuine anger. "Because I'm a woman. Because I smile more. Because I don't storm into interviews looking for fights. Because you play the game," Cage said, his voice rising again. "You give them exactly what they want. The warm host, the relatable star, the safe choice. Some of us refuse to be packaged and sold like breakfast cereal." Kelly's eyes flashed. "You think I'm fake. You think this is all an act. I think you've found a way to make the system work for you, and that's fine. But don't pretend like we're fighting the same battles." "The system?" Kelly shook her head in disbelief. "You think I haven't had to fight? You think I just smiled my way to the top? I've been underestimated and dismissed more times than I can count, but I didn't let it make me bitter." Bitter. Cage's voice was dangerously quiet again. "You think I'm bitter? I think you're angry at the wrong person," Kelly said, her voice steady, despite the tension. "I think you're so used to being defensive that you can't tell the difference between someone who's trying to help and someone who's trying to hurt you." "Help me?" Cage laughed harshly. "By putting me on your show so I can dance for your audience. So I can be the quirky guest who says something weird that they can turn into a meme. By giving you a platform to talk about your work to millions of people who might not otherwise hear about it," Kelly countered. "By treating you like the accomplished artist you are, instead of the caricature you seem determined to be." The words hit like a slap. Cage went very still, his eyes narrowing as he studied Kelly's face. "Caricature," he repeated slowly. "You walked in here already angry, already convinced I was your enemy. You didn't give me a chance to show you otherwise. So yeah, you're acting like a caricature of yourself, the unpredictable Nicolas Cage that everyone expects to see." The studio was so quiet you could hear the cameras worry. Even the crew members had stopped moving, transfixed by the confrontation unfolding before them. Cage's hands clenched into fists at his sides. "You have no idea what you're talking about, don't I?" Kelly stepped closer, her voice dropping but losing none of its intensity. "You're so afraid of being seen as a joke that you've become one. You're so busy protecting yourself from imaginary attacks that you're attacking everyone around you." "Imaginary attacks?" Cage's voice cracked like a whip. "Lady, I've been dealing with this garbage for 30 years. Don't tell me what's imaginary." "There you go again with lady," Kelly said, her voice dangerously calm. "You know what? Maybe your problem isn't the media or the industry or the interviewers. Maybe your problem is you." The words hung in the air like a bomb about to explode. Cage's face went through a series of expressions: rage, hurt, disbelief, all cycling rapidly as he processed what she'd said. "Maybe my problem is me," he repeated, his voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe my problem is me." The repetition was somehow more menacing than his earlier shouting. Kelly seemed to realize she might have pushed too far, but she didn't back down. "Nicolas, I didn't mean that the way it sounded." "Oh, I think you meant it exactly the way it sounded," Cage said, his voice gaining strength again. "I think you've been sitting there judging me from the moment I walked in, thinking you know everything about me based on whatever tabloid nonsense you've read." "I don't read tabloids about you," Kelly said firmly. "I prepare for my interviews. By watching your movies and reading about your craft, that's what I wanted to talk about today." "Then why didn't you shut down your producer when they suggested asking about my meltdowns?" Kelly paused, the question hitting home. "Because I didn't know about it until you just told me." But you're not surprised, are you? Cage pressed. Part of you probably thought it would make for good television. Kelly's silence was answer enough. The hesitation in her eyes, the way she couldn't immediately deny it, told Cage everything he needed to know. There it is, he said, nodding slowly. The truth finally comes out. You know what, Kelly? At least, you're honest about it now. Most hosts would keep lying. It's not that simple, Kelly said, her voice quieter now. Yes, producers want moments that people will talk about, but that doesn't mean I don't respect you as an artist. Respect? Cage's laugh was hollow. You just told me my problem is me. You think I'm a caricature of myself. That's your idea of respect. I think you're incredibly talented, Kelly said, trying to find her footing again. I think you're also incredibly defensive, and sometimes that gets in the way of people seeing your talent. Defensive, Cage repeated, shaking his head. You know what's funny? Everyone always says that about people who refuse to be pushed around. Like standing up for yourself is somehow a character flaw. Standing up for yourself and attacking innocent people are two different things. Kelly shot back. I didn't do anything to you, Nicholas. I invited you here to talk about your work, and you turned it into a war. A war. Cage's voice rose again. You want to see a war? A war would be me walking out of here right now and telling everyone exactly what I think about this show and the people who run it. Then why don't you? Kelly challenged, her own anger flaring again. If you're so miserable being here, if I'm such a terrible person, why don't you just leave? The question hung between them like a dare. Cage stared at her for a long moment, his chest rising and falling with barely controlled emotion. You know what? Maybe I will. Maybe you should, Kelly replied, her voice steady despite the chaos. Surrounding them, the audience gasped. This was uncharted territory, even for daytime television. No one knew what to do, how to react, whether this was still part of some elaborate performance or if they were witnessing a genuine meltdown. Took a step toward the edge of the set, then stopped and turned back. But before I go, let me tell you something. Kelly, you sit there in your comfortable little world, making your comfortable little show, thinking you understand what it's like to be out there really putting yourself on the line. But you don't have a clue. I put myself on the line every day, Kelly said, standing her ground. Every time I get up here, every time I sing, every time I open my mouth, I'm risking failure. The only difference is I don't blame everyone else when things don't go my way. Blame everyone else. Cage's voice was incredulous. Lady, I've taken responsibility for every choice I've made in my career, the good ones and the bad ones. But I'm not going to apologize for refusing to be treated like a circus animal. Then stop acting like one, Kelly snapped, her patience finally, completely exhausted. Stop walking into every room looking for a fight. Stop assuming everyone's out to get you. Stop making it impossible for people to support you. The words hit Cage like physical blows. His face went through a series of transformations, and for a moment, it looked like he might actually break down entirely. Support, me? He whispered. You think this is what support looks like? I think this is what happens when someone tries to support you and you throw it back in their face. Kelly said, her voice softer now, but no less firm. I genuinely wanted to celebrate your work today. I wanted to give you a platform to talk about the things that matter to you. But you decided I was the enemy before I even opened my mouth. Cage stood there for what felt like an eternity, the weight of her words settling over him. The studio was dead silent, everyone holding their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. You know what the worst part is? Cage finally said, his voice barely audible. Part of me believes you. Part of me thinks maybe you really did just want to have a normal conversation about my work. I did, Kelly said simply. I do, but I can't take that risk anymore. Cage continued, his voice gaining strength. I can't sit down across from someone and assume they have good intentions, because too many people have proven me wrong. And maybe that makes me paranoid. Maybe that makes me difficult, but it's what keeps me sane. It's also what keeps you isolated. Kelly said gently, it's what keeps you from connecting with people who might actually care about you and your work. Cage looked at her for a long moment, and for the first time since he'd walked onto the set, his expression softened slightly. Maybe, he said, quietly, but I'd rather be isolated than humiliated. Those don't have to be your only choices, Kelly said. There are people out there who see your talent, who respect your work, who want to engage with you as an artist, but you have to give them a chance, like you. Cage asked, and there was something almost vulnerable in his voice. Like me, Kelly confirmed. If you'll let me. For a moment, it seemed like the tension might actually break, like they might find some common ground. But then Cage's expression hardened again, the walls going back up. It's too late for that, he said, his voice flat. This whole thing has gone too far. There's no coming back from this. There's always a way back, Kelly said, but she could see she was losing him. Not from this, Cage said, gesturing around the studio. Not with cameras rolling and an audience watching. This is exactly the kind of spectacle I was trying to avoid. Then let's stop the spectacle, Kelly said desperately. Let's sit down and start over. Let's talk about your movies, your process, the things you're passionate about. But Cage was already shaking his head. No, this is what you wanted, isn't it? This is the memorable moment your producers were hoping for. The Nicolas Cage meltdown, live on television. This isn't what I wanted, Kelly protested, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? Cage asked, and his smile was bitter. Be honest, Kelly, this is going to be the most talked about episode of your show this year. People are going to be sharing clips of this for months. Your ratings are going to go through the roof. The accusation stung because there was truth in it. Leo could already imagine the headlines, the social media buzz, the way this confrontation would be dissected and analyzed. You're right, she said quietly. People are going to talk about this. But that doesn't mean I wanted it to happen. But you're not going to stop it from happening either, Cage said, and there was resignation in his voice. Now, you're going to let them air this, you're going to let them turn this into entertainment. Kelly couldn't answer, because they both knew he was right. That's what I thought, Cage said, and he started moving toward the exit. This is exactly why I can't trust anyone in this business. Even the good ones, even the ones who seem different, they all end up being part of the same machine. Nicolas, wait, Kelly called after him, but he was already walking away. Thanks for the lesson, Kelly, he said without turning around. I hope it was worth it. And with that, Nicolas Cage walked off the set of the Kelly Clarkson show, leaving behind a stunned audience, a shell-shocked host, and a moment that would be talked about for years to come. The cameras kept rolling as Kelly stood there alone, trying to process what had just happened, trying to figure out how a simple interview had turned into such a devastating confrontation. What did you think of this incredible confrontation between two entertainment powerhouses? Was Kelly right to push back against Cage's accusations, or did she cross a line? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and make sure to subscribe for more behind-the-scenes stories that you won't hear anywhere else.